Antarctica, a continent of mystery and natural wonders. Covered with ice 4 kilometers deep. Temperatures can drop to minus 93 degrees Celsius. 75% of our planet's fresh water is locked up in its ice sheet, and yet it's classified as the largest desert on Earth. This could be the only place in the world where diverse countries have rallied together in the name of peace and science to protect the environment.
The part about the ice and the temperatures, sure, but the part about peace and the environment, it's hard to believe. Not just because I'm concerned about nature, but also because I lived in Syria in 2009. So I don't have much faith left in peace or in the international community. But I'd love to be proven wrong.
We've come to Punta Arenas, where the polar research vessel Esperidas is picking up a group of Spanish scientists to take them to Antarctica.
I'm already nervous.
You'll get used to it. It's no big deal.
Cuidado por aquí que esto está bajo.
It's amazing.
I've even got a window.
Bottom bunk? Last night was rough. We went to bed early, but I had a hard time falling asleep. I must have slept just 4 hours because I was so nervous about the trip.
I embarked on this journey to explore the myths of Antarctica. After one day at sea, we reached the end of the world.
At the southernmost tip of Argentina, Tierra del Fuego is still 1,000 kilometers from the continent of Antarctica. This is the Drake Passage. Eddies and wind churn freely here, whipping up violent seas in one of the Earth's roughest waterways.
The worst storm to date hit us this year. It was our second trip back from Antarctica. We were about 18 hours from South America when a severe weather system hit us from the starboard side. We faced 7-meter-high waves and winds of up to 50 knots.
Every time the crew sails into the Drake Passage, they have their mobile phones camera ready.
Here comes a monster wave. Could be taller.
These are the outlines of Cape Horn, a notorious maritime graveyard that harbors the sunken wrecks of hundreds of ships. Even today, the Drake Passage commands respect. Everyone battens down the hatches.
It wasn't so dramatic on our trip, though.
Luckily, technology has improved a lot, and today, before setting sail, we can check the weather forecast to find the best window for crossing the Drake Passage.
The adventure may not be as wild as it once was, but it's still beautiful.
Antarctica has been subject to territorial disputes for centuries. The passage was first sailed by Spaniard Francisco de Oces in 1525. 50 years later, it was discovered by the English explorer Sir Francis Drake and bears his name to this day. In the early 20th century, 7 countries laid territorial claims to parts of Antarctica. The overlapping claims of the United Kingdom, Argentina, and Chile caused tensions that erupted into armed conflict between Britain and Argentina in 1952. As the Cold War set in, the last thing the world needed was a new geopolitical flashpoint. It was that realization that gave rise to the Antarctic Treaty.
Many people, including scientists, were looking for ways to cooperate, and there was the International Geophysical Year in 1957-58, and that worked out so well that there was this idea that there could be cooperation in Antarctica. They felt that there was a way, and it's shown in Article 4 of the treaty, to set aside the claims and to say that there would be a demilitarization. But it's also, as you may know, one of the first arms control treaties. So it was focused on keeping the peace in that respect as well.
But none of that was the result of goodwill alone. The extreme climate made it difficult to exploit the region economically, and the US and Soviet Union staked their territorial claims quite late in the game.
Four days after leaving Punta Arenas, the Hesperides reaches Antarctica.
Everyone is excited. We got up at 5 in the morning to catch our first glimpse of the coastline. What we hadn't expected was the fog.
We are 2.5 miles away, and you can't see anything.
A few hours later, the fog lifts, and at last, we can see Antarctica.
The Hesperides' first stop is King George Island. The Spanish team is delivering supplies to the Uruguayan station Artigas.
Antarctic cooperation is running smoothly.
The Antarctic Treaty is very effective. Under its terms, this location is devoted solely to science. It's played a key role in getting all countries to set aside their other interests, at least publicly, and it's been that way for a very long time. Unfortunately, the same is not true in other parts of the world, where usually economic interests take precedence over scientific cooperation.
Could this model be exported beyond Antarctica?
That's a good question. It's something many on the planet would support.
Because King George Island offers the easiest access to Antarctica, it has the greatest concentration of stations on the entire continent.
There are facilities here belonging to Uruguay, Russia, Chile, Argentina, Brazil, China, Poland, Peru, Ecuador, the Czech Republic, South Korea, and Bulgaria. The Antarctic Treaty regulates how many new stations can open so that it doesn't get too crowded.
It's always better to coexist peacefully with your neighbors and get along. The first thing we did was to establish good relations with all our neighbors. Cooperation is vital in Antarctica.
When there are tensions between the United States and Russia, does it affect the cooperation in Antarctica?
I wouldn't say there's no effect, but by and large, the cooperation has continued. And it doesn't mean that those tensions aren't, in some respects, in the background somewhere, but at least in terms of the Antarctic programs and the Arctic programs and the work of the scientists together, by and large, that continues.
In 2004, Russia imported wood from Siberian pines, its national tree, to construct a small Orthodox church here in Antarctica.